All right. Did you guys come to hear about some shifts, or did you think Jordan was going to run team meeting again? A little both. He did, right? Jonny Jr., give him a hand. Yes, yes. So I've been gone a little bit, right? I haven't been here the last few weeks. I appreciate my staff holding the fort down. Jordan, thanks for running team meetings, which kind of offered me up the opportunity to spend a bunch of time with Gary Keller. In the last 6 months, I've probably been in the same room, small room with Gary for about 50, 60 hours, which is just really cool. It's a close, intimate setting where I can just kind of lob any question that I have had for 11 years at Gary. It's just been a really cool experience. And he's just poured out a lot of wisdom that I want to try to just get out to you guys. One of the things that Clay and I just did last week is we've been in the top 200 of Gary Keller's top 200 teams for the last 18 months. So we flew down to Austin, Texas last week with basically the 200 rainmakers of all these big teams across the country, which is kind of Gary's little favorite, little team thing where we can kind of just ask him all sorts of questions, and he does a fantastic job at just helping us prepare for what's ahead of us. So that's kind of what the message is. I'm going to kind of debrief 8 hours of Gary into the next 25 minutes, if that's all right. And I want to talk about specifically the 3 shifts that we're going to see in 2019. Who has had their best year in real estate ever this year? Or who's on pace to have their best year ever? Who's had one of their best years ever in the last 2 or 3 years of real estate? Yeah? Who doesn't like to vote? Most of you. Good. So we've had a fantastic real estate market, have we not? It really has been really, really cool. And part of this is we're going to experience 3 major shifts in 2019. And if you were to take each single shift at its own, it could disrupt the industry. Some of these could flip real estate on its head. When I'm talking about 3 shifts, what shifts do you think I'm talking about that we're going to see in 2019? Tannen? Interest rates.
More of a buyer market with it leveling off.
Okay, so an economic shift. Okay. Technology shift, right? You said economic shift. What's the third one? World domination shift. That's correct. I heard it over here.
Value.
Good. Thanks for listening yesterday. Good. Value proposition shift. Okay, so I'm going to dive into each one of these 3 for a little bit. The first one is a technology shift. What do I mean by a technology shift? If you've listened to anything I've said the last few months, what's the technology shift looking like?
Kelly.
What?
Kelly.
Kelly. Yeah, there's a battle going on, right? And everything that we've been leading up to the last year, we call it, we've nicknamed it hype fatigue. We almost are talking about the technology so much, but yet you can still only access like 1% of it, which has kind of created a little bit of hype fatigue. But the reality is they're trying to put the message out so firmly and strongly to make people aware by Q1, all of this stuff's going to be out. And next year is really that race that Gary Keller's talking about when it comes to technology. If you've seen it, we're calling it the 4th Industrial Revolution. We didn't name that. We're just actually calling it the same thing everybody else is. But when it comes to AI and big data, those are going to be major players that are going to flip the way that we look at real estate and the way real estate's done. And really hardware, software, cloud services, the internet, we've seen a lot of cool stuff come out, but that hasn't been the 4th Industrial Revolution. The 4th Industrial Revolution is what's coming next year. And our competitors are not our typical competitors. Our competitors, like even that video said, Zillow is one of our biggest threats to the real estate industry next year. If you come to my roadshow, we'll talk a little bit more about that. So this is what our platform is going to look like. The consumer, the agent, the market center, Keller Cloud. If you don't know what any of this is, absolutely come to the roadshow. The consumer app that's going to be released basically at Family Reunion is going to be so cool. And at the roadshow, I actually will go through, I don't know, maybe like an hour of videos and slides and just really make sure that you fully understand what the app's going to look like and how it's going to change the way we do business. So in the technology shift, there's a lot of things that's going to change, but even just where you do your real estate business. So this is just a quick little screenshot of KW Command. If you haven't seen it, just everything to do with technology and the way that you run your business will all be housed out of Command by next year. And even the way that we interact between Market Center and agents and Market Center and teams, the new Connect is going to be really, really cool. It's going to save us hundreds of hours of trying to communicate and post this here or this here or this here. Even today, we're trying to brainstorm a little bit on just going digital. So we're recording this, that we're going to start figuring out a way to get it out digital for those of you who can't come sometimes, if you want to repeat it or see it again. So the first one, like I said, technology shift, the best way to prepare yourself for what's going to go on next year is the Technology Roadshow, okay? So it's a 4-hour class. I usually try to teach a little bit faster. It's 3 hours, so come on Friday to that. The next thing is, if you haven't seen any of these, the live stream training. If you're not watching those things, it is vastly important. And even when you come to the Tech Roadshow, I'm going to instill a little bit of panic in you that you need to be paying more attention to the technology. Live stream training is the way to do it. Number 3 is join labs. Who has access to any of Command right now? Okay, who doesn't? Every one of you need to join labs and figure out how to start getting into some of these things before, which is the next one, Fam Reunion. So basically Fam Reunion, if there's one time to go to Fam Reunion, like I post on the Facebook group in the last 10 years, this Fam Reunion is very, very, very important, okay? So we've talked a lot about that one already, but I really want to spend a little bit more time on the next two, okay? So economic shift. What's a shift? What's an economic shift? How do we know we're in a shift?
So a market has conditions. If one or more of those conditions change, then that changes the terms of how people transact business. So that's a shift, I think. From Mega Camp, Jay Papazen said that it's a supply-driven shift, lack of new construction nationwide.
Totally. Right, the real estate goes in cycles. We all know that. Usually the typical cycle is somewhere around 7 years-ish, something like that. I've said this before, but if we were to identify 4 specific points of a shift, 1 being, the top, 2 being declining, 3 being the bottom, 4 being going up, where are we right now as a real estate market?
1.2.
When I asked this 3 months ago, where were we? 1. Where do you think we are now? 2. I think we're in 2. We've started feeling it. Who's felt a sign of the shift in the last 90 days? What are those signs that you felt?
Longer days on market.
Days on market's gone up. What else? Price reductions.
All the buyers are calling each other. Every one of them.
Sold price, original price.
I was analyzing a neighborhood, and I was surprised that 15 of the 20 homes on the neighborhood had all taken price reductions that were on the market.
Who's had a little harder time getting leads now than they did 6 months ago? I think that's probably the first question I get asked. I lost count at 40-something of agents calling me or texting me or coming to my office saying, hey, is the rest of the office feeling this? And they'll say one of these symptoms of what's going on in the marketplace. So who are the first people to know about a shift?
Jonny.
I think the active participants, the agents that are transacting business all the time, because I think if you're just doing a dozen deals, you're not going to feel it as much as, if you're actively involved every day.
Who else? Who are the first people to know a shift's coming besides you? People have listings? Remax. Just kidding. The first people to feel a shift are the buyers. And basically, the way that a shift starts is all of a sudden buyers just start figuring out that, you know what, it's a little too expensive to buy. Who are the second people to figure out there's a shift going on? Agents. We typically don't even know before the buyers do. The buyers are the ones telling us, right? And we start feeling the signs of what the buyers are causing, right? Why would the buyers all of a sudden say, do you know what, we don't want to buy anymore? What are we seeing right now? Affordability, interest rates, lack of, and then they typically are the ones that tell agents, right? And all of a sudden we start feeling it, and who's the absolute last ones to feel it? Why is that? The rest of the market's going down, but my house is still worth what it was last year, for sure. And that's typically how a cycle happens, is basically the whole shift process is buyers just waiting for sellers to catch up. right? So buyers start feeling it. They start realizing, you know what, we don't want to buy anymore. And then it takes who knows how long, a few months, few years for sellers to start becoming realistic, right?
Just a question about when we talk about a downturn market. In the Great Recession, obviously, the valuation of home did depreciate. But is the type of shift that we're looking for is just a slower rate of appreciation year over year? Because my understanding from the data is that we're not necessarily facing home prices dropping the way that they did 10 years ago. Does that difference make sense?
Mm-hmm.
I think you'll experience it because of your interest rate. It'll have to because of buying power. There'll still be that struggle of what takes place. So if interest does go up, you'll still have that struggle that takes place, and the only way to resolve it is through price.
So let's talk about that. I've got a few points that I specifically want to address. So say we start the shift, we start going down. How long does a shift last? Like how long when we hit the bottom, how long does that shift last? Time period. On average.
2 to 3 years.
Yeah, Gary Keller says 18 to 24 months. It is not a drastically long time. You know, you might start feeling some of the effects of up and down, but usually in that down period, we're only down for on average the last 17 cycles that they track, you know, about 18 to 24 months. Okay? So let's talk about how we prepare ourselves, okay? And the first thing, Gary says, this will not be a horrendous shift, which instantly made me feel a little bit better. I'm like, oh, thank goodness, right? When we look at the recession compared to what our predictions are, Keller Wiliams, the research department, it's not going to be a crazy, horrendous shift, okay? The second thing is you just look at the economy in general. Like what caused the last downturn is night and day different from where our economy is now. Like GDP is fantastic still. It's a really good number, solid number. Unemployment looks good. Wages look good. The challenges that we see, what's driving the shift right now? Prices, interest rates, and new laws, right? Prices, double-digit appreciation. Has that caused it to be a little bit more expensive for buyers to buy? What about interest rates? What were they 2 years ago? 3.25 or whatever. What are they now? 5? 2% interest rate increase. That's a pretty big difference, right?
Maxed out, or cost of living in Utah, the income that comes in and people are paying out, there's just this gap has been building, and we are capping out there. It's just ridiculous, the spread.
Totally. The affordability, if you watch the affordability index, yeah, it is definitely a lot less. So why are they raising rates? When they say the rates are going up, why are they raising rates? Anybody but Sheila? She knows. What? Good idea, yes. What does that mean? Economy's doing better. Appreciation's going up so much that they want to slow down how much the appreciation, inflation is growing, right? So if they make it a little bit more expensive to borrow money, it's going to slow the growth down. And why do they want to do that? So it doesn't get out of control, but the one tool when we go into a recession type of economic downturn, lowering interest rates is really one of the very few metrics that the government has to try to get our market back up. So even when we start going down and we start hitting the recession, they literally took the prime rate to 0. It was literally the lowest interest rate you could get, and if we would have kept dropping, we would have ran out of options on how to turn the economy around. So you look at that, so do you think with the appreciation, the inflation, how well the economy is doing, do you think interest rates are going to keep going up or down? Up, right? And the reality is, you look at our administration right now, like Trump, who's all about him, he is jumping up and down because he's so mad that the Fed is raising rates because he wants to keep his economy growing so much so it protects his legacy so he can write books, right? But the reality is, the Fed, they're going to continue to raise rates until we steady out a little bit.
As you look at the cycles and the curves, by raising the inflation, raising the rates, they're trying to make those dips less and take away the extremes of the highs.
Yeah,
and lows.
totally.
That's what they're trying to do.
And I think something that's important to remember too, I don't know a ton about this, but the Federal Reserve is not run by the federal government. It's run by banks. And banks lose a lot of money in a down cycle. And so they don't want, and they're threatened foreclosures and everything like that. They don't want terrible markets. And so I think that's an important thing to keep in mind.
Well, and it hurts the Illuminati. Who knows?
I didn't say that.
But it does.
So this is what Gary said specifically about your question. We don't know about appreciation or depreciation. That's always kind of a lagging metric of what the real estate economy is doing. But what Gary did say is units potentially could drop 15%. Most likely, nationally, units will go down 10%. So if we're at 5.5 million units in the country on a 12-year rolling average, it could drop 550,000. So going from 5.5 million to 4.95 million. Even in Utah, we have 50,000, 50,000 closed units, 100,000 sides. So if we go from 50,000, we might drop to 45,000. Doesn't seem crazy drastic, right? But that could affect everybody. If your business dropped 10%, you were closing 24 deals, now you're closing 22, does it affect you? Sure, right? But what it also does is it weeds out the onesie-twosie agents. Their one deal is no longer their one deal, it's a zero deal, so that's why you typically see a downturn in the realtor population. Robert, and then Kobe.
Commercial, because obviously interest rates affect commercial a lot more than home values. And when interest rates are going down, it's actually raising the value of those properties here, because you're trying to get a certain cash on cash return. You're buying a return on your investment here, where as interest rates start going up, if the prices don't even change at all, then your return on your investment keeps dropping lower and lower and lower. So what happens, and we haven't seen this for 30 years now, where the interest rates have been anything but dropping down. If they go back up, you're gonna have a lot of commercial people holding on, thinking like, no, my property's worth more than this, and investors fight the cash flow. So that's
He didn't specifically say anything, but usually the sign is that commercial follows the residential market by a certain time period. Could be 6, 24 months, whatever, Colby, and then Brad.
fair to say too, when you hit that drop at 15%, it's not just gonna be across the board. The 20% are gonna absorb, the top agents are gonna be the ones that sellers are seeking out. It's gonna be tough, it's gonna be hard to sell, so they're gonna go to the ones that know what they're doing. And throw a sign in the yard anymore.
So David and I taught the shift tactics, and literally the first line in the shift book, which is one of the things you need to go back and read, a shift immediately affects everybody, right? But it's the people that are prepared, the people that are adaptable, the people that can shift quickly are the ones that, you might go like this, but then you might cruise through a shift and grow your business. The people that aren't prepared, a shift could just take you out, depending on how deep of a shift it is. We're going to talk about that. Brad.
Real quick, I was just going to mention along these lines, Matt Green showed that graph, I think it's in the shift below. If you superimpose the agent count onto the shift, there's a 6-month or a 12-month lag agent count. So his point was, it was really interesting, is that not only is it a slightly declining potential market or flat market or whatever, but it's going to be possibly the most competitive 6 to 12 months as those ones you say agents, part-time agents, find another line of work.
Yeah. Yeah, I know ours, in the bottom of the recession, our units per agent was the highest it's ever been. And we've only gone down as the economy's grown and the real estate market's gone up, just because more people get in and they take their one deal out of you, or whatever. So usually most great agents look forward to this type of stuff, especially if it's not going to be that dramatic of a shift. So let's talk about it. How do we protect ourselves? Just like Colby said, how do we protect ourselves against a shift, prepare ourselves, and build that foundation? Okay. The very first one is lower costs. Lower costs and prepare your budgets. Personally, businessly, is that a question? Is that a word?
Yes.
I call it play green, yellow, red lights on your expenses, okay? So me and Novalee's done this several times over the last 6 months on the market center budget. I've done it on my team budget. I've done it on my personal budget. Go through literally every line item on your budget. Green means you're keeping it. It is an absolute great investment in you, right? Having a house or a roof over your head is probably a good investment in your future. Yellow, or say red is you need to cut it now. That is something that is just dumb money. Don't spend it on it. Cut it now and prepare your budget. Yellow might be somewhere in the middle, and you might need to actually track the return of the results or the return of the investment or whatever it may be for a few more months before you can decide is it green or red, okay? So play this. So literally go do it this month. Cut some stuff out of your budget. Next month, go do it again. Cut some more stuff out of your budget. Every month I go to Novalee, I'm like, we got to cut the market center budget 10%. She's like, we literally just did that last month. What do you want me to do? Cancel Christmas. We're going to Vernal instead. Yes. Economic shift. Prospect-based marketing enhanced. Why would we need to become prospecting-based marketing enhanced in a shift?
I think people get used to lead receiving rather than generating those leads. And so if you're not used to proactively polling your SOI and generating those leads, that's not going to change. So you get into that habit.
I mean, proactive, not reactive.
Proactive, not reactive, yeah.
Paying for leads, that volume is going to go down.
Prospecting is dirt cheap. I mean, you can go out and knock doors and it costs you nothing. And you can get leads from that.
Totally.
It's labor intensive, right?
Sure.
Labor intensive and capital.
So those are all great ones. The few that Gary said that stuck out to me is prospecting puts you face to face with success or failure, right? Like you are literally right there knowing if something's working or something's not working. When you have marketing out, especially in a shift and stuff changing so much and inventory can drop or interest rates or whatever, there's so many variables out there, you don't really know why someone's not responding to your marketing online. You don't even know a lot of the metrics when you're talking about your marketing, right? And in a shifting, throwing up a bunch of marketing is kind of just throwing money in the air, right? And this is what he said too, is prospecting should inform your marketing. When I say prospecting-based marketing enhanced, that's not saying get rid of everything to do with not knocking doors and calling. That's just saying lead with that so you can figure out what's working and what's not working and then enhance it with your marketing. Does that make sense? And then the last one is, one thing that goes away is experimenting. So a lot of our top agents have kind of thrown some money at different stuff, just seeing if it works. Who's experimented the last 3 years? A lot of you, right? Money came a little bit easier. Let's see if things can work or whatever, and you try a few things. That goes away for sure. The next one is training. We have to get better at everything. The first question you got to ask yourself is, what do I not know that I need to know? If you haven't read the book Shift, go read the book Shift. If you need to brush up on your scripts, come to what's going on with the scripts, right? If you need to brush up on your listing consultation, your buyer consultation, whatever, you have to double down on spending your time in training to hone your skills in, okay? Win the game, not the season. So this was a big aha for me is, I'm a big football fan. I've told this story a couple times. I'm a big football fan, right? And you look at a lot of NFL coaches, they have a season perspective. Sadly, the Cowboys are maybe not going to the Super Bowl this year, but most of the coaches, they have a perspective on the season. Even if you go 0-3, it's about the season and it's about getting to the playoffs. If they get in the playoffs with a 9-7 record, do you know what? We won the season. We're at least in the playoffs, right? But then you get some really strategic, very smart coaches like Bill Belichick of the Patriots. Yeah, right. Bill Belichick is about winning the game. He is shortening his window, and every game is so crucial. They could literally be 15-0, and Bill Belichick, his life or death is riding on winning that game. You get some really nutty coaches out there like Nick Saban. Nick Saban is about winning the play. Winning the play. He could have a game that he's up 57-0, and you will see him running up and down the sidelines, throwing his dang headset on the ground because they screwed up one play. Because he knows that if you win every play, you'll win the game, and if you win every game, you'll win the season. If you win the season, you're going to win the championship, right? And in a great market, you have the luxury of kind of looking at your month. You know what? I didn't prospect every day, but I did pretty decent on the month. As real estate agents, we have to shorten our perspective to win in the day. Today, you got to make your 20 contacts. You got to win today, because if you win today, you're going to win your week. If you win your week, you'll win your month. Does that make sense? Win the game. Win the game, win the play. The next one, market of the moment. What's that mean? Market of the moment. David Robinson, what's market of the moment?
Whatever market you're in, you got to attack.
Which he did a fantastic job when the last recession, he went all in on short sales, right? You got to find where the sellers are at. You got to find where the listings are at, and you got to go get them. And that could be 100 different avenues. You got to go find what that market of the moment is and go out and get those listings, okay? And things that you are no longer working, you've got to shift quickly and go out and find those listings, which is the last thing which I put on everybody's desk. If you don't know exactly the number of listings inventory that you need to carry at all times to hit your goal, you're in trouble. You need to be very, very laser focused on how many listings you need to carry at any time to make sure that you're going to hit your goals, okay? And what happens in a shift, when we start going down, Does listings expired go up or down? Up. That's right. If the market starts going down, not as many homes are selling, and expireds go up, right? So your conversion ratio from listings taken to listings sold, does it get better or worse? Worse, right? So that's part of this, is not only do you need to know, you need to be recalibrating that every week or every month as more data comes in. Because if your listing inventory needed goes from 5 to 6, you got to go win the play, and you got to get your listing inventory up to 6, okay? And you have to be laser focused on that. If you know Gary, once they figure that out, after 1 month, if they're not there, he's getting out of his chair. After 2 months, if you're not there, he is literally starting to throw things around the room. Like, you got to be that committed to making sure that your listing inventory is where it needs to be if you want to protect yourself in an economic shift, okay? Do you know how many listings you need to hit your goals? Value proposition shift. What does that mean? When I say value proposition shift, what does that mean, except for you? Value proposition shift. Daniel.
I think it's just like, red light, yellow light, green light, and for us, sellers are gonna be doing the same thing. It's how do you offer more for the same amount?
Brett?
Yeah, similar. So what are your values that you're adding to your clients, right? Is it the same as everybody else in this room? Are there unique things that put you ahead, right? Does it give you a chance to win more than others?
Josh and then Cameron.
Yeah, I would say now specifically to that point, if in an up market, your value proposition is help sellers get more offers, whereas in a flattening off market, can you get the one offer at the price you want? Can you lessen the stress on them over the time frame? Can you shorten the sales time frame?
Cameron, back there.
I also think like the technology, that shift also is going to take effect. I do business, your value proposition is on this. It changes a lot of business.
Totally.
And I think it also has to do with like what you've done to earn the right to stay in relationship with them after the sale, or how long, what you're doing to earn that right to be in relationship with them.
Yeah, there's just no reality about it. The last several years, our value is absolutely being challenged. What value does a realtor bring to the table, right? Even Homey was just a local representation of what's going around the country, as these companies are challenging what our value is compared to what technology can do, right? Or a lot of other categories.
Well, just because you mentioned Homey and the model works better in a seller's market, I'm sure Gary Keller didn't talk about Homey, but businesses like that, the local digitally based agent-enhanced companies, will they be challenged just as much or more? No, I mean,
Live question.
Does anybody have any insight about it? It's a genuine question. I don't mean to be rhetorical.
Yeah, so even Roadshow, we'll talk about that a little bit more, but the technology has to fundamentally replace the value that realtors are giving. And some of these companies have sparked up, don't have any proprietary technology that's actually replacing us. They're just trying to do more and put up, fancy marketing that's attracting more people. But there are fundamentally technology pieces that are going to disrupt the way that we can offer value, which I'll talk about in a sec.
So I think it goes down to honing up everything. So our value is also, our CMAs and, the things that we do to help sell their home, which is not just sticking a sign in and giving them an app. There's a huge difference, I think, when it comes down to it. I think we see a little bit of difference because of the value that we offer.
Totally.
This is something I come across all the time. You go to a listing appointment, and the very first thing that they bring up is everybody's pitching technology. And I think one of the things that we're overstressing is everybody's saying, yeah, technology. But we're putting a premium on the technology and not really selling the fact that this is an emotional purchase for a lot of people. And the experience of having an agent that's been down this road is really what they need. I feel like the agent aspect, the emotional aspect,
Well, and the reality is we're trying to sell them something that isn't of value to them. 99% of the billions of dollars that have put into real estate industry technology development, 99% of it has been going towards productivity tool enhancement for the agent side of the business. It hasn't been about bettering the consumer experience. And that's why we are ripe for disruption as an industry. That's why Zillow popped out of nowhere, because they said, you know what, we're going to try to go create a fantastic consumer experience, and clearly it's worked. They got 175 million people or whatever visiting their website every month, right? And that is the race. That's the threat to us, is someone that's going out and going to create an incredible consumer experience. stuff we've been saying as an industry for the last 10 years is a bunch of garbage that's trying to convince them that it's good, right? And we're all going out trying to tell all of our clients why our website is better than the other 99% of websites out there when it's the same hunk of junk, search website. Who else had one? Up here?
When I think of value proposition in the commercial world, we think of what is it that I do and offer that is unfair to my competition. The competition, you think of it as the generalist of what they offer, and this is what we all do. And when we step back from that, if we were to look at it as a voice of the customer, what is it that our customers want today? What is it they may want tomorrow? And then think in terms of how do I offer this in a way that has value to them. And so what we have found that has been different is that there's still a lot of people out there that they want a personal connection and a touch, a humanistic, just take care of me, to the extent of, you have clients that, we have one that doesn't have a lot of resources. So Jennifer and I just stop by Home Depot. We buy boxes, we buy stuff, we drop it off to help them. The connection is that you're doing something to help me that is purely, we just want to help you, whether you sell it or not. And that connection, so how does that differ from everybody else out there?
So
Giving them an app, okay, that's great, but that doesn't help me buy more boxes, doesn't help me advance things.
So let's talk about that, because technology is a separate shift, right? We're talking specifically about the value that we deliver as people, right? People to people. Which right now, I want to run through a quick example, but if your value is based on transactional coordination, which I'll talk about in a sec, 2 to 3 years from now, you will wake up and you will be drastically behind in the real estate market. And what I mean by that, if you look at the consumer path, this is part of the technology path, the race that we're experiencing in the technology world is the race to complete a consumer experience that is just a start-to-end platform, right? We've talked about that a bunch. And voyeurism search specifically. Who's been in the real estate for over 15 years? Raise your hand. Who in the room has ever experienced the real estate book before the MLS online came? 1 or 2 of you. Okay. Robert, quickly tell us what the real estate world looked like without the MLS online.
You had monopoly on the information. People buyers were forced to come into our office and sit down at our computer was the only computer that had all the inventory on it. And the book you could take in their home, but still, they had to come to you instead of us trying to go to them.
It was a very physically based value proposition that agents had the monopoly on, right? We were the only gate between buyers and the homes that they wanted to go out and find, right? So we were a drastically huge amount of value on the voyeurism and search categories, right? He even said, if you were to walk around a typical real estate office back then, every office was just filled with buyers because the only way they had access to it was coming in. What did the MLS, the internet, and the MLS, IDX feed, search, what did that do to the way that we deliver value to our clients?
I think the value change is time management, and that's what the shift has been. Because I remember when I was first married, we would drive around with the realtor and go look at 30 houses, a lot of them which were done to go look at in the first place. But there was such time wasted. And the only thing that's been improving through the industry is because of the consumer's value on their time. And they have a lot less time to do what they need to do to find what they need. So whatever's happening has to be that we are better at that time management. We are more accurate at what we're showing them or providing for them, because that's where value is time, because that's what.
Yeah, it was great for us because it saved us a lot of time, energy, and just like frustration, because buyers have a lot better idea what they want to buy by the time they contact us before they did back then, right? Has anybody ever had a buyer literally know the exact home they want to purchase before they come to you? How much value did you give in the voyeurism and search process in that transaction? Very little to zero, right? Your value then became about the transaction coordination, writing the offer, doing the contract, negotiation, watching the deadlines, valuing the home, coordinating with the 100 people in a transaction, the title company, the mortgage, all that sort of stuff. Very transactional stuff. How much did you actually even know about that house? Very little, right? You're basically just a very high-paid transactional coordinator in some of those instances, right? And that's what we're talking about as technology evolves, MLS on steroids, when some of that technology actually comes proprietary out and actually starts eliminating us from the value we deliver to clients because technology can do it on its own, it's going to change the way we deliver value. So when I say you can't be transactional based, you have to be value based. Which, how do we do that? The first one is hyper local. You have to get very, very good, and you have to become a local expert somewhere. One of our top agents, number 5 or 6, Ashley Jensen, if someone wants to list in the city of Provo, or specifically her neighborhood in Provo, Ashley comes to their mind, right? Has Ashley done a great job in Provo? Is she even here? She's gotten very, very hyper local, and she's built a gigantic business on just a few hundred houses, right? Because she knows everything there is to know about that neighborhood. And someone else going into that neighborhood and trying to have a presentation with that same seller, we just look less experienced and less professional because Ashley just has more wisdom and she's just a lot more hyper-local in that neighborhood. So we have to figure out that is. We have to scale that down to figure out where you really, really want to target, okay? The next one is real estate information. Gary basically kind of made fun of real estate agents, but he's like, most of our real estate agents don't actually know anything about real estate. He's like, can you imagine going to a heart surgeon that actually has no idea anything to do with a heart? He's just kind of guiding you through a process. You know, we have to become experts in real estate. And he gave a whole bunch of examples. Who knows the lifespan of a Spanish tile roof? Somebody know that? 13 years, exactly. Is that real? I don't know.
I don't think he's telling the truth.
How are homes constructed? Who's been on an appraisal when they go and do the appraisal inspection for a government-endorsed loan? Does anybody know what radon actually is? Water rights,
Does it cost
right? What about zoning? Do you actually know the different zones in a computer? It's $1,500, right? That we've got to start becoming better real estate professionals. We've got to know a lot more about real estate than we currently do. If our value is no longer shifting from transactions to actual being experts in the real estate world, we've got to get a lot better. And that's part of the challenge is why Gary thinks that we're going to drop in half on the realtors in this country is a lot of these shifts, but it's going to be a lot harder for new agents to get into the business because they don't have that wisdom or the experience that's going to make them a lot less competitive than it is right now. I remember I got into the business, my first buyer transaction, my cousin, I didn't know anything about the home, I didn't know anything about real estate, I didn't know anything about pricing, I didn't know anything about anything, but somehow I just guided them through a few steps and I got paid a commission check. I felt a little bad that I didn't deserve that commission the first few deals that I closed deals because I had to get a lot more experience, a lot more confident in the value that I provide. Heather?
So the last couple listening that went on, the questions have been like, should I replace my floor now? Will it make it more desirable? Should I sell before my neighbor who's thinking about selling? Like, I don't know if, you know, if that's going to be competitive for me. And like all these questions that like you're saying is like not really about the transaction. It's more about like what should I do to my house to make it more sellable and to make it more desirable in today's market. And when should I list it and what is going on? Like all kinds of questions like what you're saying about water rights. Like getting like, okay, we need to do water rights here or do we not? Or is it more, you know, how much more money are we going to get as we go through this whole process? And I'm like, whoa, hold on, let me go find all that out right now. Because I have no, I mean, like you were saying, I didn't know how much water rights affected, but it's very, like you said, hyper-local too. It's very...
For some reason, when I go over our market stats, like what the real estate market is doing every quarter, for some reason, half the room stands up. As soon as they find out what it is, they stand up and walk out. For some reason, our ability to comprehend and know what the real estate market's doing is not a concern to them. They're like, well, I'm really good at texting the title company and texting the mortgage person to see if the appraisal's in. That's what I'm great at. That can't happen in the future. We have to get very good and know what we're supposed to be doing in the real estate world. Make sense? And then the last one is just services, before, during, and after. When you look at the whole buyer service cycle, each step throughout that service cycle, each step throughout the seller service cycle, if you don't know the value, if you can't articulate your value proposition in that piece of the service cycle, you need to rethink your value proposition. Okay? If you don't know what value you bring in a post-close or a transactional system or whatnot above the transactional details, you got to figure that out. And that was my aha. I'm like, we've got to get very clear as agents in this office of what our value proposition is in each one of those pieces. Okay? Okay, breathe. How was that? Yes. Okay. Summarize technology shift. What are the 4 things we got to do to protect ourselves against 2019's technology shift?
Go to your roadshow.
Go to the roadshow. Family reunion.
Join labs.
Join labs. Watch the live stream training. Economic shift. What are the 5 things we got to do to protect ourselves against a shifting market in 2019?
Cut costs.
Lower costs.
Prospect-based marketing.
Prospecting-based, marketing enhanced. Training. Market of the moment. Listings inventory needed. Okay, what about value proposition shift? First one. Second one. Real estate information. Services. Okay, that is literally your growth plan, your education plan, the things that are going to keep you awake at night all throughout 2019 is you got to master those. And the people that really take this seriously and make that their game plan for 2019 are the people not only are not going to feel the shift, but are going to explode through a shift. Okay? There's a lot of money to be made when net worth doesn't go like this. Like wealth isn't built this way. It is built like this. It comes in waves and it comes in cycles. And the agents in our office that want to prepare themselves for all these things, there is a lot of wealth and a lot of money to be made. Who wants to be on that side of it? Yes. Who doesn't?